Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. I'm Mariana Schaefer. I'm the Vice President of Programs at the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation. I'm really thrilled to be joining you this evening, particularly since this is my first New Jersey Waterworks conference. So thank you. I'm so honored to be part of this effort and to be invited to introduce this session, Seizing the Moment, the Role of Community and Water Stewards. Dodge, longtime supporter of this work since 2012. And our program officer, Naima Campbell, sits on the steering committee today. We're all here probably because we know about the work of New Jersey Waterworks or Jersey Waterworks, but I wanted to just say a few words. The only collaboration or collaborative effort in New Jersey that centers transforming water infrastructure in the state, something that's so critically important. Also unique about the work the collective impact model, where members work together on shared goals, and they do this as stewards of our natural resources, the environment, and our most importantly, our water. Incredible panel this evening. I was so excited to read about all of the different experiences in this group and perspectives. They span environmental engineering, community activism, and local government. They all bring their expertise along with a deep commitment to this work, and also supporting and enlivening this work at the community level. And I think that's, in reading their bios and learning more about them, I think that's what brings this wonderful group of people together. I am eager to learn with you about these critical issues, and I'm in a moment over to Marcus Sibley, who will be moderating the session. Wears hats. He's the Director of Conservation Partnerships for the National Wildlife Federation Northeast Region. He serves as the New Jersey State Conference NAACP Environmental and Climate Justice Chairperson, and he also chairs the New Jersey Progressive Equitable Energy Coalition. And Marcus, I hope you don't mind me saying, I think in a past life you are, or maybe in this life too, you are a poet, hip hop artist, and native. So if you're interested in hearing some of Marcus's work outside of this space, you can find, I think you said, Marcus, some CDs still out there. Too bad there are no CD shops for us to go flipping through to see if we can find you, but maybe in the virtual world. Again, so thrilled to and to be with all of you. And Marcus, I will turn it over to you.
Much Mariana, and CDs are gone, but it's digital, so you can go ahead and find it digitally. But this is a wonderful evening, and I'd like to thank Mariana and Jersey Waterworks for putting on not only this conference, but making sure that we're able to tackle this important topic, and that's what we're trying to do tonight. We're trying to seize the moment, and we're going to learn about the role of the community and water stewards. So before we go ahead and get started, I'd like, again, thank everyone for and welcome you to day 2 of the 7th annual Jersey Waterworks Conference. Again, my name is Marcus Sibley, and many of my roles were just discussed. And it is an honor and a pleasure to be with everyone this evening. I'm looking forward to learning, and that's what these events are about. We're here to learn. We're here to learn, to absorb the information, and then take it to our particular municipalities and then fight. And all of us are supposed to take this information and go fight, because as we'll discuss tonight, the money doesn't always get to our communities. We can't assume that people are going to do the right thing. So we have to be the ones who advocate and make sure those dollars and that effort and attention gets to where it's supposed to get to. So we have a very exciting session. And as Mariana mentioned, our time here today is to have a dialogue about seizing the moment, the role of community and water stewards. Now, I have to also inform you that toward the end of the session, please be sure to check the chat. because there's going to be a Jersey Waterworks, a Jersey Water scavenger hunt. And it's a scavenger hunt game question. So there's a Jersey Water check, and it's a data dashboard with information of over 500 utilities in New Jersey. So the scavenger hunt's goal is to help participants become familiarized with the dashboard. The first 3 entries that have all correct responses receive a $25 gift certificate to Starbucks. So be on the lookout for the questions toward the end of the plenary. So now let's go ahead and matter of fact, let's get a poll real quick. Let's take a second to get a poll. How many people here, and we're gonna do this through the chat, how many people here think that they have a good handle on how water works in New Jersey? Like if you have an issue in your town, how many people think they know who they need to contact, what they should do, what are the courses of action? If you feel you have a good game plan, if you have a water related issue in New Jersey, let's utilize the chat. Let's take a second to utilize the chat, and just a yes or no. If you think so, say yes, no, or maybe. Let's take a second to do that. And while that happens, Paul, if we could pull up slide 3 so we can learn a little bit more about Jersey Waterworks. Okay, how we doing? So we have some yes, maybe, yes. Come on, everybody. Let's not so much. Good answer. Let's be honest. This is what tonight is about. We need to learn. So yes, medium, maybe yes, medium, yes, maybe. Okay, this is good. This is a good start. But I'm also thinking about the people who is just a no. For a lot of people in our state, it's a no, and this is why it's our job to help people understand the roadmap so that they can get remediation and get assistance. So as these responses are rolling in, we have a slide posted, and it says, why water, why now? And why now? Because our public health depends on it. Number 1, we have an aging infrastructure. Number 2, investments are needed. Number 3, climate change impacts. Number 4, lead in our drinking water. Number 5, PFASs or forever chemicals. Number 6, or PFAS as people say for short. Number 6, flooding and combined sewer overflows. And we'll learn about that a little bit from one of the panelists who deals with that very up close and personally. And number 7, affordability. So it's good, and let's take a snapshot of that really quickly. Aging, investments needing, climate change impacts, lead in the drinking water, PFAS or forever chemicals, flooding and combined sewer overflows, affordability. So just really quickly from right there, you see there's so much more to water than the narrative tells us about. It's a lot. This is a huge deal. There are many ways that water impacts our daily lives, and why we need real investments and real dedication to go ahead and solve this problem. Can we get to the next slide, please? Okay, so now our shared goals and common agendas. Now, I'm not gonna lie, that one is a little small. So I'm gonna pull these up so I can see the screen. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger for myself. So we have individual efforts on the one diagram, and then we have the collaborative actions. So again, I hope you guys can see that a little bit better than I can, because the text is a little bit small on my screen, so I do apologize for that. So with that being said, I would like to get into this conversation because what we do know is that our infrastructure is aging, and we know we need investments, and we know we need to work together, and we know we have common goals. So let's bring in some of our panelists so we can really get to the bottom of this, because we have some amazing panelists that are working different sectors throughout our state. And I just want to start off with some questions. And for our panel, we have Rena Joel and Martha, and will definitely introduce themselves further. But I'm going to start with Rena, and everyone has a water story, right? So I would just love to know, what's your water story, and how did you come to work with water within your profession or your community with water? And I just want to say, let's try to get this done in 3 minutes so we can get through all of them.
Got it. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thanks, Marcus. Really excited to be here. So my water story is really very traditional. I went to school for environmental engineering. I've been working in water as my day job. So this is what I do every day. I have been working for about 10 years in this space, and I pretty much started as any engineer would. I did a lot of design work and planning documents. And it wasn't until 2012, 2013 that I started working with a client that was impacted by Superstorm Sandy, that I got really interested in climate change and how that impacts water infrastructure. So I wanted to, work with other utilities and kind of show them the importance of preparing for these kinds of storms. And I also wanted to be, very technical about it. So I decided to go back to school, and I'm working on a master's degree now in sustainability management. And, it's very broad, but basically what I want to do is kind of take, the science behind climate change and learn about different tools and apply them to the utility world to help them sort of prepare for climate change and reduce their emissions. And then aside from that, I also do some work when it comes to public outreach and education. And mostly I've been doing that within the lead service line programs that have been going on in New Jersey. So that's my water story.
Thank you so much. And Joel, let's hop in. Let's learn about your water story as well.
Thank you, Marcus. And first, before I begin, I want to apologize because I wanted to be much more dynamic on this call, and you can't see me. I got this brand new webcam connected, and it's not working, so it's a little embarrassing, but I'm going to do my best to keep you guys engaged. So my water story stems from when I was a community organizer for the Citizens Campaign as a director there. And actually, I worked very closely with Martha, who you'll be hearing about in a short bit. But I started learning about my own hometown's issue with combined sewage overflows. We don't have a serious flooding issue, but the whole thing with CSOs as an acronym, people just their eyes glaze. They have no idea what you're talking about. So it was my role as a community organizer to educate the community on what it was, how it affects us in our own homes. And through that process, I became passionate about what are we doing about our water infrastructure? Why is it so hard? What are the challenges? What are we doing to have good quality water? And now in my new role, not no longer working with the Citizens Campaign. I'm working for the city of Perth Amboy. I'm overseeing the long-term control plan. I'm the point person for Mayor Helmut Kaba for the water infrastructure with the long-term control plan for combined sewage overflows. That's how I got involved in the water issues in my town.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Joel. And now, since you've already mentioned her, we're going to jump and head over to Patterson and talk to Martha. Martha, could you share your water story?
Oh, thank you so much, Marcus. Thank you so much for allowing me to have this, be part of this group. Water story. Well, sad to say that I am a flood victim of heavy rainstorms, whenever it rains. So being experienced flood victim, I became a activist on trying to push forward change on stopping the flooding. So I became one of the co-chairpersons for the Patterson Green Team. Patterson is a beautiful diversity that gets affected very much so by flooding because we have a combined sewer system that needs to be updated. So I'm one of the panelists here that's flooded several times, and it's time. Enough is enough.
And you know what, let's stay with you for a second, Martha, because you mentioned the green team, and you know, some of our listeners are new to this space and may not know what a green team is. So could you give us you know, like a baseline definition of what a green team is and how you got involved yourself?
Yeah, in 2018, Mayor Andre Sea decided to form, he's very much so an activist about going green and climate change and all that. So he put together volunteers that wanted to be part of a green team. So the green team, we're all volunteers, and our main focus is, you know, educating the community on what is a CSO. That's one of our main goals. I took that on personally because we're affected by flooding, and the main problem is the fact that the language. No one understands what is a CSO. That's our biggest problem. So being on the green team gives me the platform to be able to go throughout our community with all our partners. New Jersey Future, the Gray Swamp, the Sacred River Coalition, NJAC, the list goes on and on. We've teamed up with so many partners that give us the resources to bring programs. So the Green Team voted in a program called Adopt a Catch Basin. We kind of mimicked Newark. They are champions on leading the role with that in Newark and Jersey City. So we provide a homeowner or anyone, any resident of the city of Patterson, we encourage them to adopt a catch basin. A basin is located usually somewhere in the street, usually at the corner at the end of the block, that collects all the rainwater. And besides the rainwater, it collects all the debris and garbage. So by adopting the catch basin, you're basically committing to keeping it clean. So we provide you with a safety vest, because it's always about safety, some tools to maintain it clean, and to keep a log and be engaged in maintaining that catch basin clean. By doing that, you're preventing garbage from clogging into the system that's already having issues, and you're actually keeping Patterson cleaner at the same time. And it's an activity to be part of the community and be engaged.
That's really interesting. I thank you so much for bringing up the Adopt a Catch Basin, because that's showing the work that the residents can do. And that's a really important piece. You know, this is a huge issue, and we need our governing bodies to do their job. We need our organizations to do their job, but we have to do our jobs too. And from what you just described, the green team could be something that every town could have. You know, you know what, I'm gonna ask you one more question. Was it difficult to start for the people from different towns who may be interested?
No, it's easy. I think the easiest part of it all, or it gets easier, once they understand all the positive things that happen when you do adopt a catch basin. When you adopt it through the green team or whatever city you belong to, if they have this program, you're making a commitment more or less, but you get tools, whether it's a rake or a grabber, a safety vest, but you can do this on your own time. You're preventing flooding. That's the key. And you're preventing garbage and debris going into our waterworks, into, you know, our rivers and our oceans and pollution. So it defeats, you know, it's a win-win situation for the environment, for us not being flooded. So it's our role as residents, regardless whether you're a homeowner or you're a tenant. It's our job to keep our properties clean and help our environment working together. So the green team is all about doing stuff like that, creating rain gardens and composting, and we bring a lot of good programs into the city.
I mean, and that's really interesting. And if you could, because I know, you know, this may spark some interest, if you could put in the chat at some point some of the things that a green team does, like you just named gardening and the basin, like so people can have a running understanding throughout the event. Because we want these things to translate across the state, because preventing flooding is really important. So thank you so much, Martha. And now, Joel, we've just been speaking about what the community can do. Can you tell us a little bit about how municipalities work to plan for the future of water infrastructure?
Well, typically it's managed under the utilities department. Depending on the town, it could be broken down in various ways. The city of Perth Amboy has what they call utility service affiliates of Perth Amboy, who works with Middlesex Water, and so you also have MCUA, so Middlesex County Utilities Authority. They all work hand in hand. The USAPA utilities service affiliates, they treat our water, and MCUA pretty much receives our sewage and tries to do what they can um, to send it back and recycle the water. Um, as far as what they're doing now, there's various things that cities can do. Currently in Perth Amboy, we're looking to do a rate study on our water and to ensure that our rates are the best for our residents. That we also are looking to, I mean, 21 cities in New Jersey with combined sewage overflows are mandated to put together a long-term control plan by the state. Uh, um, and so this long-term control plan typically is for the length of 30 to 40 years. And it requires the city to address or to figure out a solution to retain stormwater from going out into their, bodies of water, and so the long-term control plan in Perth Amboy, which was put together by a consultant team uh, that was hired through our utilities. There, Perth Amboy has CDM Smith, I believe Newark and some other towns are using CDM Smith as engineers to put together their long-term control plan. They're one of the most experienced in the nation. And again, working with the community, they put together an extensive, comprehensive plan how to tackle it. From separating sewage lines, from implementing green infrastructure. Um, how does educating the community on how they can play a role. There's even suggestions of creating a green team, and we have also actually in Perth Amboy a green team as well, and working with experts that have been helpful in Perth Amboy in the past, such as Rutgers, and New Jersey Future. So these are plans that are being put together now as we speak. But the hardest question is how can residents afford the implementation of these plans, and that's where I think we're all stumped right now and searching for different ways to fund the implementation of these plans, um, looking for ways to make it more equitable, whether it be finding other alternatives to the solutions that were identified by the consultants. And so yeah, it's each town is taking a different approach depending on what their current water issues are. Certain towns have led, like Newark. You guys did a great job, addressing that quickly. But for many towns that are old or aged out, Perth Amboy being one, we don't know what our lines are. So there's classified as unknown, but being that it's unknown, it might very well be lead pipes. So these are things that we are looking to have more studies done within our city, and having our consultants, our utilities, and having the community involved is helping to get a better customized solution for the city.
And thank you, because one of the last things you said was a perfect segue into bringing Rena back into the fold, because Rena, you work closely with utility members, and Joel just speaking about one of the obstacles is things being affordable, these different alternatives being affordable. So could you tell us about your experiences on how utilities engage with the community, and if there is any conversation from the utility side about affordability?
Yeah, sure. So, I've worked with a few utilities actually on lead service line replacement programs. And, engaging the community is done, in a lot of ways that I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. You could receive letters in the mail, you go to public meetings, and the utility tries to educate and engage in those ways. But there are, other ways that are very, very effective when you can actually engage the community at a deeper level, which is like understanding what they really need to know. A really good example of this is one town in New Jersey where they had a lead service line replacement program. And in this particular town, this is a very, very close-knit town. And when contractors would go to a block to start replacing the lead service lines, they would knock on doors and people would either not be home or, they didn't want to let somebody in their house because they have to make that, connection into the internal plumbing. So what this team started to do is they would find somebody and then, they would be called, nicknamed the mayor of the block. And what that means is that there would be somebody that everybody knew, everybody trusted, and that person also knew everybody else. So once their lead service line was replaced, they would call other homes on the block and say, hey, tomorrow contractors are coming to your house. Make sure you open the door. This is something important to do. And so this utility, recognized that this was the culture of the community, and they're able to start engaging people. So they would, not only are they able to get the lead service line replaced, but the utility is able to fulfill its mission very, very quickly by engaging the community in this way. So that's a very good example of how, when you understand what that community is like, you can actually get a lot of work done very quickly.
And that's important. That's important. And from the New Jersey State Conference NAACP side, when we look at this whole water situation, we absolutely understand that there's no easy fix. It's going to take a combination of all of us working in tandem. So it has to be our communities, as Martha is doing, and it has to be our municipalities, as Joel is doing, and then it has to be our utilities that Rena works with, all working on the same page. Because the reality, and this is what the NAACP focuses on quite a bit, everything we're talking about isn't new. Nothing that we're discussing today is new. These things have been around for the longest time. But what has happened is people speak about it, funding comes, but magically the funding doesn't get to where it's supposed to get to. For us, that's always the issue. This is why we're always building relationships, meeting with decision makers, being in the rooms that we're supposed to be in, because at the end of the day, white supremacy is real. Racism is real. A lot of the towns that have these issues, it's because of systemic racism. It's because of white supremacy. And it is embedded into our culture. So to expect when a whole bunch of infrastructure money comes, all of a sudden people are going to start being nice, that's realistic. That's not realistic. It's kind of ridiculous. We have to push people to do the right things. We have to push people to prioritize and earmark funding for the projects, because right now, think about the projects that we have. I mean, think about the money that's coming down. We have the infrastructure bill, and then potentially we have Build Back Better. It go from federal, and then it comes to state. But then where's the specificity that makes sure it gets to Patterson, make sure it gets to Perth Amboy, make sure it gets to Newark? That's what we need. So this is why the NAACP is in this fight to make sure that we don't get left behind, because it's important that we don't get left behind. We try to, people talking about Build Back Better, we're trying to get back right, because things haven't been right for a very long time. So as we continue in this discussion, and I'm really enjoying this conversation, I just want to give a quick heads up to please, there's a lot of activity in the chat. If you have any questions for the panel, please go ahead and add those to the chat. We will have a Q&A period. So definitely, actually, there's a Q&A section too. So please go ahead and add those questions because it's important for us to share. So now I'm going to come back to you, Joel, because I see that you worked in the Citizens Campaign for several years. Could you tell us what you did there and how that experience shaped the work you do today?
Yes. So before I came on board with the Citizens Campaign, I was in the hotel and restaurant business. So it was all about service and giving service. When I finally had time available to dedicate to the community, I started volunteering with the Citizens Campaign as a civic trustee in Perth Amboy. And civic trustees are volunteers who work to present evidence-based, cost-effective solutions to their municipalities. Again, working as a volunteer, I guess the passion was there, right? So there was interest in hiring me to work with the Citizens Campaign. I became a director within the year. Working with people, community organizing was really the root of my work, and identifying issues, finding practical solutions to these issues, and helping residents to think practical as well was also part of my job. Training residents, training teachers, even to educate their students. Um, and I served many towns. So we had civic trusts, and I would run the program. And they existed in Perth Amboy, Trenton, Plainfield, Philadelphia, and other towns throughout New Jersey, Patterson, with Martha. and Martha was already let me tell you, she's a lean advocate for the city of Patterson, and made it. I was always trying to pull her back in. She's like, no, I'm gonna go and chew these guys up, let them know what we got to do here. So, I was always looking for those who were very passionate in their work, because that's where I find myself connecting to with those individuals and really making differences, bringing about change with folks that are just caring and passionate about their city. But through this process, I did learn about policies. I learned about how how the municipality operates. How do you get the attention of public officials who don't really know the details of these challenges, and how do you get them to really respect the input that you're providing? Because someone like Joe Schmo, you're not from the town, you're not from the city, has to really work with key community individuals that are recognized, such as Martha, who can get the attention of public officials. So it was always, educating and providing information and being there to support. When you open yourself or lend yourself to the municipality that way, they see you as a friend and they accept the information you provide. So it's how you always got to look at. Let me digress for a second. For most folks, when we look at problems, we say, "Oh, we want somebody to blame. We want to point fingers. We want to say, this public official is not doing enough, or this person is not paying attention to these issues." And sometimes you have to realize that these officials are taking all the problems all at once, especially on a local level. I'm not talking about state, county or national level. Local officials receive the bulk of the issues concerning residents' quality of life, or across the nation. And so we need to help them better understand these problems, better understand these challenges. But you do that by attacking the issue, not the public official. And when you do that, and you attend public meetings, you make presentations, you present the issue, but you're also presenting a solution, an alternative. Then you get their attention. Then you put the pressure to say, well, where do you stand? If this is really a solution, will you move on it? And you can ask that question.
100%. And you're spot on with that. And I appreciate you for bringing that up, because that's so true. It has to be a collaborative effort. And, a lot of us, as I'm looking in the chat, there's a lot of advocates that are attending this. And I, see these people all the time, and we're fighting But we also understand we have to establish relationships with our elected officials because it is a lot. And we understand that. But the flip side of that coin is we can never forget that these people aren't volunteering. They're elected. They're elected to do a job. Our governing bodies are paid to do a job, and that job is to regulate so that our lives are okay. There's so many things that our towns deal with because, quite frankly, a lot of our elected officials aren't doing their jobs, and a lot of our governing bodies are not doing their job. So, yes, we have to be understanding, and yes, we have to come with alternatives. But many of us have been at the table and seen all the evidence in the world not matter, and things get voted on. So this is why that collaboration has to be, all levels have to be employed. And that's important. I think we just have to be very honest about that. People have to do their job. The people have to do their job. The agencies have to do their job. The organizations have to do their jobs. Now, the difficult part about that, and as Martha mentioned in her bio, she said we need a no blame solution approach. So I know that has to be very difficult when you see things, you've grown up in areas, you've seen things be the exact same through many different administrations, and you want to blame. But Martha, you say we should have a no blame solution approach. So could you take a moment to define what that means and how do you utilize that principle in your own community?
Okay, so thank you for that question, Marcus. Yes, as Joel was my leader at the Patterson Civic Trustee when he was still on board, it's a no blame approach. So you see what is the problem? The problem in Patterson, one of them, it's just we're talking about water. So it's the flooding. It's because we have a combined sewer system overflow, right? So that needs to get changed. My area to be fixed costs $49.9 million, and it's not going to be addressed to 2040, according to the long-term control plan. So that's the issue. So how do we fix the issue? So as a no blame approach, I seek solutions. I seek teaming up with New Jersey Future, NJAC, Rutgers, the Safe Water Coalition. The list goes on with all our partners to bring the resources that they could bring into our city to, first of all, help our governing body that doesn't understand maybe, or they're not ready to work on a big project like this because this is a lot at stake. So we have to help bring resources also to them to help them understand. And with those resources comes with a lot of money, a lot of federal money. So in my case, I started my own petition stating that I needed help, signatures, with the flooding in Patterson for all, because this is a health hazard, this is a financial problem, and this is an emotional problem. When you tie it together, this is an unjust. And Patterson is the third largest city in New Jersey. It's surrounded by the Passaic River and the Patterson Falls, which is awesome. But we flood all the time, and we flood just by rain, not a hurricane like Ida. So it affects us so much. So we have to work together, bringing resources to the governing body, the community, so we can all be on the same page. So we know the problem. So as a Patterson Civic Trustee, as a trustee, my job is to seek solutions or bring aid to the plate. Because like you said, Marcus, the wheel's been invented. It's round. It's all of us working together, pushing that wheel round and round in a positive direction to make this work. And this is our time. This is the perfect segment. It's called Seize the Moment. This is the moment now, because this flood affected everybody. No one walked away scot-free. If you were blessed for it not to happen in your house, well, you know what? Maybe it happened at the bodega. Maybe it happened at my school 24. It was shut down for a month because the school was flooded. So it could happen in your place of worship. There was no space that the flood water did not attack. I had 5 feet of water. I've never been so devastated ever. And I'm ready to just say, go live in a mountain somewhere. But that's not the case. Is like we have to work together with partnerships and bring all the resources. This is the time that the federal government has money that they want to give. So let's tap into it. If our city officials in Patterson don't understand how to, so then my job as a seeker is to grab all my partners and make that happen, bring that to them. That's how I work my being a Patterson trustee.
That's important because you're plugging people in. You're
right.
I'm thinking of the old school phone operator who's plugging in. That's what you're doing.
That's right. My job before being an activist was being a dental assistant, a surgical dental assistant. So my job was always to take care of my patients and make sure that they were comfortable, they were relaxed, they felt good, they had great service. They walked in with an ache and with a beautiful smile. So at the end of the day, we could all smile together because we do this together. If we work together, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. And
100%.
a city this big, surrounded by awesome organizations that we can do good together, there's no stopping us.
100%. And you know what? Thank you for that, because what I definitely want to do, I want to take a second to acknowledge, as you say, these different organizations that are in this work and making sure that we're fighting. There's a lot of organizations. Like I say, I'm employed by the National Wildlife Federation. National NWF does amazing work across the country. We have many organizations across the country, within the state, many different organizations that make up Jersey Waterworks. As I look in the chat, we have many different organizations represented in the chat right now. So I just want to take a second to say thank you. Thank you to all the groups who are invested in this work, because it matters. Like when Martha just said, flooding closes a school. You know what happens when schools close? Lessons stop. You know what happens when lessons stop? Kids fall behind. You know what kids do when they fall behind? Other attention-seeking behaviors, because they're behind on their work. You know what that leads to? School to prison pipeline. All these things are connected. Like, these are absolutely connected. So I appreciate the work that the different organizations are doing, because it matters. It absolutely matters. And with that, I want to go to Rena real quick, because I understand that you developed some public education and participation programs for key water infrastructure improvement projects. So including lead service line replacement programs and as well as climate change planning. Could you give us some insight on what that experience was like as we hear discussing alternatives and remediation plans?
Yeah. I just want to say that I really appreciate what Martha said about how some of these issues are actually so personal and can be very emotional. And so that's a very good point. And I think that some of the utilities, one particular utility that I worked with, recognized that. And they would have these public meetings where it would be a large forum. You can go in and you can ask questions in an audience format. But they also had a separate area in the back where somebody could ask these one-on-one questions. And homeowners would come with a letter in one hand about lead service lines and lead service line replacement and how to learn if you have a lead service line. And then they would come with their cell phone with a picture of, a gas meter or water meter. It's all pipes. Sometimes if you're not familiar, you don't know. And I think that, like, giving that intention, that one-on-one, face-to-face, human-to-human connection is so important when you're dealing with these issues like this. Because for me, now I'm able to see, well, how is the information that's being put out there landing with somebody? And I'm able to go back and kind of improve the materials that I make, the messages that we put out, so that people can understand the issues and what's going on. It's it's an extra step. It's a difficult thing to communicate some of these things that are, our infrastructure is underground. And it's very important to make sure that the customer understands that. And then on the other side, the customer is able to see that, there is that connection. They can ask questions and they will be answered. So I think that there's ways to do it really well.
Okay, and I'm gonna come right back to you, because some people are very skeptical of the efforts that are made by our utilities as you speak about them. How do we know? How is the community to know that a lot of the programs aren't just symbolic gestures to take our attention away from the work that should be done that isn't getting done? Can you speak to from seeing both sides? Can you speak to the skepticism that some people may have?
I see that, sometimes, like I said, this communication can be a lot. It can be confusing, but I think that the utilities that I've worked with have the intention. They have the intention of doing the work. They have the intention of replacing their lead service lines. Nobody that I have worked with, doesn't care, because they know how important this work is, especially when it comes to drinking water.
It's good to know. That's good to know, because what we can't do is paint such a broad stroke across the entire industry and say that everyone is up to no good. There are some really good utilities out there, but just like there's good utilities, there can also be bad advocates. So you can have it both ways. But what I think is very important that we should never lose sight of is there's always more work to do. So we can always be grateful for the work that's being done. But if we know there are towns where there's not even a plan in place, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have towns that have a plan. There's some towns that don't even have a plan in place. And it's systemic issues that are just ravaging generations. And in those situations, there are absolutely people who could have done more. And I think it's important for us to make sure that we never become complacent. We never get too comfortable. Yes, thank you for your help, but let's continue to work together so we can help more people, because the data doesn't lie. It's far too many children, and you can look in the chat. There's a lot of good information going on in the chat right now about what are the repercussions of this, sewage water and the storm water. It impacts a lot of the society, and we need to continue to work at it. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this conversation, because we're making it real, we're making it personal, but we're also sticking to the fact that everybody has a role to do, and everybody should be doing their job. So this is really, really good. And I'm going to go to Martha, because I see, you have extensive experience in this work from the community aspect. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience that you feel is important for them to know, Martha?
For the audience, yes, I feel like everyone needs to find a way to get involved with what's really happening in their community. Be engaged, because there's a lot of good resources out there for you to get engaged and bring back. But going back to the CSO here problem, I think the language has to be worded a little bit people friendly, so we can understand. I find myself repeating what is a combined overflow. So I have a little picture of the pipe going down and the difference of the sewer separation that I bring with me. We just had recently, last Saturday, December 4th, an open mic that we collected water stories. We partnered up with NJAC, Water Spirit, and New Jersey Future, and the Girl Scouts. We did a cleanup, and we had some folks, some Patagonians come out and share their water stories, storm stories. So they have, it's easier for more people to come out when they understand what is combined sewer overflow and what can we do as a community to fix it or alleviate it, and understand what the city's doing to implement change for it. So, like Patterson put it together a long-term control plan, which I definitely have problems with because my area clearly states in section D-43 that my area, 19th Avenue Relief, is the most densely populated area with flooding, and it's not scheduled to be fixed to separate it to 2040. So if that is the worst and the most populated, why are we last? So whoever did that, maybe they did that a long time ago, that survey. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I can't speak on that behalf, but that has to be revised. So I have written a letter to the Department of Environmental stating the facts that I read from the long-term control plan. So if I can do it, anybody can do it because the information's out there. So, but I understand it because I have been blessed to be surrounded by great partners, that really educated me as I became a Green Team co-chair, and all my Green Team members, we advocate one of our signature marks, like you had said, Marcus, is the Adopt a Catch Basin program. That's our signature mark that, we've given out 190 catch basins have been adopted.
Oh, wow.
Throughout the city. So it's in every community, whoever wants to adopt one, they can.
So Mark, let me jump in really quickly because I definitely want to make sure. And thank you for that. Let me jump in really quickly because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for the Q&A. But as you're speaking about, like, you're having the ability to connect with these people and you were able to bring this together, I want to bring Joel back in because, and maybe you too, Raina, because how do we recruit and prepare the next generation of water professionals? Like what, and there was a question in the chat about that too. Like what can be the strategies to build the water workforce? Can we start with you, Joel?
Thank you. I actually wanted to talk about that. We need to prepare our next generation. And you do that by implementing curriculums that teach not just about environmental studies, but local environmental studies. School districts can adopt their own green team and partner with municipal green teams and have an ongoing educational programs that are live within the parks, creating rain gardens, creating catch basins, educating from a young, age so that when they become time to vote, that their voices are heard, that they can actually implement and know what to do, be these leaders that are recognized in the community and naturally gravitate to positions of power because they have that leadership within them. They understand the issues and already are thinking about solutions. Those are some simple solutions that I would say. And City of Perth Amboy is already engaging their school district to create these types of curriculums, whether it be to the green team. And I believe this on their own, the school district adopted an new environmental study program that's going to help students understand more about the water issues in our town. Those are some quick ways that I believe, and definitely the programs for community or organizing, the Civic Trust, and I'm sure like many other community organizations invite young folks to be a part as well. So they're not alienated from this. They can be a part of discussions and learn within the community as well.
Sounds great. And Rena, can you jump in? You have any suggestions as well?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because for the younger people that I know that are in high school and even college, I think they're actually gaining a little bit more than what I did when I went, because they're learning a lot about, emerging things like climate change and water conservation. And I think it's almost being done a little bit better now. But I think the sort of the workforce question is really about, the fact that the kind of problems that we're seeing now and the problems that we will see when it comes to water infrastructure, they're really leaving a hole. And to fill the hole, I think it requires a lot of people from diverse backgrounds. So I really don't think it's planners or engineers and very good leaders, but I think it's a lot more people that specialize in things like finance, community activism, really good project managers, leaders that can kind of make these decisions almost without ever having all the information that they need to do so. So I feel like the gap requires a lot more diversity than what we've seen before. And I think it's there, but there are so many ways to kind of educate on yourself on some of these issues as well.
100%. And we're going to shift now. And if I can bring in Paula, we're going to look into the chat and come up with some questions. But as that happens, I just want to thank this panel so much. And due to time, we didn't get a chance to do the proper introductions and read off their bios. But I encourage everyone to go to the website to check up on the panelists. Amazing bios, and thank you so much again for your time. And the other thing I want to say before Paula jumps in, and I would definitely give Paula her props. She's been doing so much work in preparation for this workshop. So thank you so much, Paula. But I also wanted to say is that friendship is cool, but we still have jobs to do. So we can be cool with everyone, but if someone has a role, it is your job to make sure they're doing their job, even if they're friends of yours. And if you're friends, then I can be honest with you. And I think that we have a lot of friendship, but we don't have a lot of people who are unafraid to hold people accountable. And we need to hold people accountable. Like, a lot of events we're smiling with, oh, this is the so-and-so this, and this is so-and-so this. But hey, guess what? Did you have a conversation about what's happening in your town? Like, what's the point of being that close to people with the power and access if you don't speak about it? So we have an opportunity and we have an obligation to advocate when we are close enough for the people who make decisions to hear us. We have an obligation. Don't forget, it's an obligation. So, Paula, can you tell us if we have any questions in the chat that we can pose to the panelists?
Yes, definitely. And thank you all. It's been a great listening to everybody's perspectives and such insights. Chris has a question for Martha, and she asks, has DEP responded to your letter?
Yes, that they're working on it.
They're working on it.
Yes,
okay.
They received it and they're working on a response. Yes.
Okay, great. And Joe, I wanted to see if you could share a little bit about how people working closely with you have been able to help save some sort of future, expenses in the long-term control plans. I know that you shared a little bit of that when we were planning this session.
Sure. So I mean, again, it boils down to understanding what the requirements were initially in regards to CSOs. And NJDEP is mandating what exactly, and this information is made public. So working with NJ Future, shout out to Mo Kimberg for bringing me on board. So, it started off with Mo initially, who introduced me to everyone else, Chris Sturm, Andy Cricken, who's been amazing. And so many others that I'm not going to go through the long list of folks who've been helping me throughout the way, but there's also people locally that have been seeing this work being done and reached out to me, people that are engineers, retired engineers that live in town. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know you existed, and they're coming out and they say, I want to be in these discussions, and so together, these questions came up, and it's also getting the mayor involved and getting everyone involved to say, hey, we need to have more reviews and discussions about this long-term control plan. I came on board in February, And the long-term control plan was approved in October of last year by the city council. So it was kind of hard to kind of bring that back and say, hey, we want to take a closer look at this again. But it was semi-easy because we had a new administration that wanted to learn about this plan and the how it would affect its residents when it was implemented. So we were able to put together an engineering session uh, with our local utilities, with CDM Smith, who prepared the long-term control plan. Andy Cricken was with us, Mo Kimberg, and many others that are have interest in Perth Amboy. Again, once you know the requirements, you can bring it down to real practical questions and say, hey, where are we? How much are we retaining? How much stormwater are we looking to retain, and why? And that was one of the major questions that came up that saved the city of Perth Amboy $89 million. The question came up because, again, are we going for 2020, Honda, or are we going for our 2021 Bentley? Just to give you an example, it's like, and what can we afford? What's equitable for our residents? Can we still have a good solution that's not so costly? And that's something that I guess we all had to understand. I think that initially, the team developing the long-term control plan had heard from the community that we were aiming for swimmable beaches, and it's we understood the question, we understood the value of it, and we were working to try to have that implemented and see if we can afford to pay that. But again, understanding the practicality of it, understanding that there's other issues along with our Raritan Bay, other contaminants coming from other places that not necessarily from our combined sewage system, but from other places. Is it a guarantee that it will be swimmable with 100% retention of stormwater? And when the answers came out as no, it was clear at that very moment that we shouldn't be investing in things, spending more money on things that we can't guarantee for our residents, and it's not going to necessarily enhance our quality of life. Our quality of life is a combination of financial stability, combination of education, public safety, all of that together. So water is an essential component. We want to make sure it's clean, yes, no doubt about that, but the minimum requirement is 85%, and the difference was $89 million. So Perth Amboy is now taking that route, and that's how we were able to get to that point.
Great, thank
Hopefully
you.
I answered your question.
Yes, definitely. I think $89 million is worth talking about. Let me see. Any other questions here? Someone asked about building trust. How do we build trust with these elected officials or people that are making decisions for the community? So let me go to Marcus.
That's a really good question, and I think it starts with being unafraid to go into spaces you aren't comfortable with. Sometimes it's uncomfortable being at a municipal meeting, or sometimes it's uncomfortable attending a different events where elected officials are going to be. But consistency is key. Being somewhere often enough, where a person gets to learn your name, is important. And the other part about the building trust, which goes both ways, is to be honest. Be honest about what you're looking for. Like, this is what's happening. This is what I'm looking to you to help me with. But to be kind. There's a way to be an advocate, and you can be a bulldog when you need to, but you have to have a rapport established before you can get to the point where you can be a bulldog. So we have to exercise our abilities to be friendly and to be peaceful and to be kind, because the reality is this: these elected officials don't have to talk to you. Now, they should, but they don't have to. And when they get tired of you, they find ways to not talk to you. So it's important to establish these relationships and to be respectful, because respect goes both ways. but to be respectful and try to establish a rapport so that in time you can be very honest. But it's a game. It's a game. It's a game of knowing how to be complimentary in order to engage, and then once you're engaged, you can fully explain what's on your mind. But I think the kindness piece is important. Like you can have the most pressing issue in the world, but if someone doesn't, if you're not approachable, you're not even going to have an opportunity to share what that very pressing issue is, and then the person will focus more on your demeanor than the problem. And you can't be more of a problem than the problem. So we have to learn how to be. We have to juggle that very difficult task while we're trying to seize the moment.
Thank you. And Martha, what strategies do you use to get people excited about water issues?
I'm just a passionate person to begin with, but just speaking, like Marcus said, you have to find a way to approach the subject that you engage the person, whether it's a resident or an elected official, and you have to make them be part of that. You need help, and we can't do this alone. This is not a me thing, an I thing. It's a we thing. Having clean water is something that everybody should have everywhere, and if we don't do something about the flooding and the combined sewer overflow systems that keep flooding our communities, that's an injustice. This is a health hazard. We need to approach this now. This is the perfect segment to be on. But again, you have to be respectful, polite, bring your message, and you mean it, and they'll engage with you. And when they see how you are with your message, that you're bringing them facts, all the facts that I talk about are true facts. I didn't make them up. These numbers that I call out, I didn't make the long-term control plan. So you present it in a way that they could understand and they can feel your passion and that you're seeking their help. So they will participate. They'll come around.
And can I jump in one more time?
Sure.
The other thing you can do, and this relates to everything, you don't have to be nice when you have power. So when you galvanize your community and your community is strong and your community absolutely, they have to worry about the votes because they know your community will vote them out. If they know you have economic power, so you have a strong economic base, you don't have to be so nice. So I say be nice, but if you can build that power, you don't have to be nice anymore. So let's continue to build power. Let's continue to collaborate. So we don't have to be nice to people who don't care about us. Building and building your own infrastructure in your community, it pays dividends. So I'm not saying be mean, but power gives you an opportunity to flex a little bit more than we get a chance to right now. So we have to continue to build power.
Thank you. And I think that this might be the last question, unless I get another one through the chat. Rena, Nicole mentioned, it's really hard to sort of accept the fact that you have to, that Perth Amboy has to make a hard choice because of lack of funding to sort of meet these sort of basic benchmarks. And then Martha mentioned the fact that we're deciding today, 40 years down the road, what's going to happen in water infrastructure. In working closely with utilities, this idea of doing a project now that's going to last for years, does that ever come into your mind as you're working with them? Sort of like how palpable is that you're working today for something that has to stand the test of time?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes long-term projects are long-term because of affordability, because they have to plan for that. And also it's, regional projects are regional projects, and there's interest of a lot of parties to manage when it comes to the timing of these things. I'm not sure if I answered that question, but it's the affordability piece plays a role in the timing of things.
Got it. And for me, it's like these projects will affect my grandchildren. That's like, the way that I'm thinking about. And so when I engage in this conversation, sort of that's what I have. We have about 4 minutes wrap up. So I don't know if anybody in the panel wants to sort of say one last word before we wrap up, and then Marcus, you can close us out. So what's one word to describe sort of how to go forward? Go ahead, Martha, you can begin.
Wow, I get to begin. One word going forward. Sewer separation.
Got it. Joel?
Be brave.
Be brave. All right, Rena?
I say jump in where you can.
Jump in when
Be
you
enthusiastic.
can. And Marcus?
You are the solution.
I like that. Okay, I'm going to share the screen and we can wrap up, Marcus.
All right. So I hope everyone feels as invigorated as I do. This has been an incredible conversation. And again, I would like to take a second to thank everyone who has played a role with bringing this wonderful conference to the people. So that means the coalition, that means Jersey Waterworks, that means the planning committee, that means the different chairs, that means all the different participants that have participated on the panel so far and who've yet to come, because there is also programming for tomorrow. And then let me thank Paula, and let me thank Mariana and everyone involved, and our panel, Martha and Reno and Joel. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for not letting the personal situations make you stop, but the personal situations cause you to want to get more involved. And that's what we need. We need more people to be inspired to get involved, because what we have here, let's be honest about what we have here. I never shy away from the fact that racism and white supremacy is real. So we have communities who are still dealing with issues that should have been fixed 40 years ago. And if we aren't the ones that are pushing the envelope, if we aren't the ones that are using our relationships to leverage things so the people who don't have a voice can get some action and get some results, then we are a part of the problem. It's just that simple. We have opportunities and we need to make sure that we're using our influence to help the people who aren't able to help themselves. So as we think about our key takeaways, these green teams sound amazing. So let's find out ways to get the information out to the different towns about these green teams. How can more towns, we should have a green team in every town, and especially in our EJ communities. That's the key takeaway. And as Joel pointed out, as well as Martha pointed out, the green teams had resources. So how do we connect our cities with our municipalities with our residents so that the green team is fortified with the right resources so they can do the right work? So yes, there's other wonderful things we can do. I'm going to encourage everyone to check out the chat. There has been amazing information, as well as surveys, as well as petitions that people can sign that have been put into the chat. I thank everyone who has been on tonight for such a lively discussion. And I'm talking about the chat. Like it was hard for me to pay attention because there was so much good information flowing through the chat. So thank you guys for that. And lastly, before we close out, please check out the chat for the scavenger hunt. There's a game question on the Jersey Water Check. So check that out, and we have the slide up for that. And be sure to go to the Jersey Waterworks website. There's more information, and also please consider joining. So my name is Marcus Sibley. I am the Environmental and Climate Justice Chairman for the New Jersey State Conference of the NAACP. I'd like to thank my president, Mr. Richard Smith, and I'd like to thank everybody on my committee that's been working so hard to get us in these spaces just like this, because it's important for the NAACP to be at these tables, and it's important for all of our organizations to be at these tables fighting the good fight. So I'd like to thank you, Paula, for reaching out. Thank you for all the help. And let's take a group shot before we get out of here. So let's somebody before we end. Let's get a group shot before the night is out. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay.
We're going to get a group
Have
shot.
a good one.
We got it. Everybody ready?
Yeah. All right, I got it.
Perfect.
Jovi, we're good to end broadcast.
Okay.
Goodbye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.